Thank you for coming, everybody. My name is Rob. I organize Idea to IPO. We've been doing events in Silicon Valley for many years. We hold events multiple times a week from San Jose to San Francisco. We have a busy, busy calendar of events. I'd like to highlight just a few major events that are coming up. Tomorrow, Wednesday, July 19th, latest innovations in fintech, a great panel discussion. That's at Sherman and Sterling in Menlo Park. Thursday, July 20th, we have a fireside chat with Vinod Khosla at the Palo Alto JCC. And in this room, Tuesday, August 8th, latest innovations in artificial intelligence. So check out the details for all those events and all of our other events on our website, ideatoipo.com. We were launched officially on February 1st, 2010. At that time, we had no members and no events in our calendar. At this stage, we have over 50,000 members among all our meetup groups in the Bay Area. We've completed over 1,759 events. By any standard, by any measure, we're the most active, most prolific startup event organization in Silicon Valley, bar none. Is that it? Anyway, I appreciate that. Well, let me expand on that for a sec. So if we're the most active, most prolific startup event organization in Silicon Valley, and Silicon Valley is the global center of entrepreneurship and innovation, that would make us the most active, most prolific startup event organization in the entire world. A little better. I'll take it. Our mission is to promote entrepreneurship, support entrepreneurs, build community, and provide value in the Silicon Valley startup ecosystem. To that end, we provide content that is practical, actionable, and relevant, stuff that you can actually use to succeed as entrepreneurs. We believe in building community because Silicon Valley is an aspirational ecosystem. It attracts people from all over the world who come here to do great things. In fact, who here is not originally from Silicon Valley? Who here was born and raised in Silicon Valley? All three of you? Great. So it's important for us to provide multiple channels for you to meet people, build relationships, and grow your network, whether you were born and raised here or you just arrived last night. So to that end, in addition to our content-oriented events throughout the week, we have social events on Friday nights. So every few Fridays, we have a TGIF mixer. Usually it's at the Hyatt Regency Santa Clara. So check out our calendar for the next one. It's coming up in a couple weeks. With regard to value, it is important for us to provide value at each and every one of our events. Not just value for your money, which is important because we know many entrepreneurs are struggling financially. So we make sure our events are affordable. And if you cannot afford the cover charge, let me know. We're always looking for team members to help us out at our events. Team members can come for free, and there's lots of other benefits. And I need to mention, at each and every one of our events, it's important that we provide a decent buffet meal. Was this meal decent tonight? Well, we have Royce Law Firm to thank for that decent buffet meal. So let's hear it for Royce Law Firm. More importantly, though, at each and every one of our events, we want to ensure that we provide value for your time, which is your most valuable resource. Is anyone here getting any younger? I always need to check. And that, besides Stephen Colby there in the back. Point being is, at each and every one of our events, when you invest your valuable time, we want to make sure you maximize your ROI. We have many partners that help us do what we do. Law firms, venture capital firms, angel investor groups, incubators, accelerators, colleges, universities, lots of other players in Silicon Valley. Tonight, we're grateful to the College of San Mateo and the Small Business Development Center for hosting us at this beautiful venue. Is this a beautiful venue? They're a great partner, and we're honored and privileged to be collaborating with them. We've held many, many events here, and we look forward to many, many more. So I'd like to have Robert Schaffner from the Small Business Development Center and the College of San Mateo come up and say a few words.
Good evening. Thanks, Rob. And Idea the IPO is a great partner. We've done many, many events here together, and hopefully added value to your lives and to the information you need to successfully run your businesses. I am the director of the San Mateo County Small Business Development Center. There's 1,100 SBDCs across the United States. They got started under President Jimmy Carter. We're generally footprinted against the county. This one has been here for about 3 years now, and the Community College District for San Mateo is our host institution. How many of you pay taxes? And so how many of you sometimes wonder, where do my tax dollars go? What are they being used for? Well, one of the things is an SBDC. So we provide counseling to businesses, one-on-one counseling. Generally, you get an initial engagement of 8 hours, which if we went on the private market might cost you anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000. Our service is provided for free. I have 15 advisors right now that are experts in how to get financing for your business, HR, social media marketing, IP information from a legal education standpoint, not an advice standpoint. But many different things that can help you. They're all business owners in their own right. In the last couple of years, we have provided businesses $45 million in capital. We've helped increase their sales just shy of $14 million. We provided 4,300 hours of counseling and have worked with 700 clients over that period of time. So we're pretty effective at what we do. In the state of California last year, we provided access to capital for businesses of $787 million. We are moving towards $1 billion, which we'll probably pass this year or next. So if you have need of some service, please contact us. And since we're here at a college, we also provide a lot of workshops and training classes that might be of benefit to you. Please visit my table there where you can pick up some information. And again, welcome this evening. We're very happy to host you.
A few of our other partners are here tonight. I'd like to also have them come up and say a few words. First off, let's hear it for Rick in Kovar Molecular Coatings.
Good evening. I'm Rick Stenberg. I'm the founder and CEO of Koval Molecular Coatings. We're an inorganic-based nanomolecular bonding material that we can transfer substrates of inferior quality into superior quality. So PCB boards, wood, metal, glass, and you're welcome to join me for a little conversation. I have a booth with some examples over in the corner, and appreciate being here and look forward to talking with everyone. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Chrissy from Quixie.
Hello, I work for Quixie. We're a mobile app cybersecurity company located in Menlo Park. We prevent apps from being hacked, so we work with banks, healthcare, e-commerce, and retail to provide the vulnerability assessments, control of your mobile app, and IP protection. So if you guys have any questions, come see me after the event. I'd love to talk to you about cybersecurity. Thank you.
Next up, we have Mike from CTO 911.
Hello, my name is Mike with CTO 911. I'm in the construction business, except I do software construction. I develop software platforms for entrepreneurs and companies alike, anywhere from SaaS, software-based applications, cloud-based applications, mobile applications, as well as machine learning and data science solutions. So if you have any need in that area, in the construction business, please come talk to me at the table. Great. Enjoy the event.
So though our local mission is to support entrepreneurs here in Silicon Valley, our global mission is to democratize entrepreneurship and innovation all around the world. To that end, we have a robust YouTube channel, youtube.com/IdeaTheIPO. Go check it out. We have tons of videos. We've documented and archived many of our events. And this rich, valuable content is available on demand, anytime, anywhere, totally free of charge. It's whether you're in San Mateo, Menlo Park, Palo Alto, Maui, Moscow, or Timbuktu. Our partner in this endeavor is Tim Jeggers of Jeggers Films, one of the top professional videographers in all of Silicon Valley. Let's hear it for Tim.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everybody. So I'm Tim. I've been working with Rob for around a year and a half now. I cover events like this and conferences throughout the Bay Area. Got my start doing weddings. I still cover those events and doing all sorts of fun things with video and photography and multimedia production. So if any of that is interesting to you or you had questions or wanted to talk to me about that, I'll be in the back, I'll be roaming around, and I'll definitely be here after for a bit if you wanted to chat about anything like that. So thanks for coming, and I'm going to pass it back to Rob.
Okay, I need to let everybody know that we have a raffle tonight, and that's going to be happening roughly at about 8:30 after the end of the formal program. We have some great prizes. You must be present to win, so make sure you stick around for that. So here's the agenda for the rest of the evening. We're going to have a panel discussion till about 8 o'clock. Hold your questions until 8 o'clock. At that point in time, we're going to have audience Q&A. We'll have you walk up to a mic stand, ask your question. We want to take as many questions as possible. And we want to hear some interesting, dynamic questions, and we'd like to have a clean audio, so please use the mic. At this point, I'm going to pass it off to our distinguished moderator. He is one of the top corporate startup and funding attorneys in Silicon Valley. He is an iconic figure in Silicon Valley. He's everywhere. He's at conferences, meetups, social events. He's everywhere. He's Roger Royce.
Thanks, Rob. Well, who would have thought that you would ever hear the words construction and technology so close to each other in a sentence? Can you think of any two things that seem to be more different than that? But as we're going to hear tonight, it's surprisingly, construction companies are now technology companies. A lot of them are, just like a lot of other industries. I will tell you that preparing for this panel has been a real eye-opener to me. I think I've learned more in coming up here to talk about this than almost any other thing. I'm Roger Royce. I'm the founder of the Royce Law Firm. We're a business law firm based in Silicon Valley in Menlo Park. We have offices in San Francisco and Southern California. And as a lot of you know, we differentiate ourselves by creating a community, and this is part of our community, where we put entrepreneurs together not only with the legal services they need, but the investment community, the service providers, the talent, a lot of other things. Before we get started, I want to mention we have a table in the back. Make sure you stop and visit it. Some of our people are staffing a table as well as checking you in front. We have a couple of our lawyers here. Steve, stand up, is a patent lawyer. I said we're full service. We even got patent lawyers in our firm now, so every company knows how valuable patents are. Dave Tate is in the back. He is, believe it or not, a litigator. Like I said, we're full service. We have litigators. They're like nuclear weapons. You hope you never have to use them, but when you do, you want a guy like Dave. So make sure you stop and say hello to Dave if you'd like to. So, construction technology. I think the way we'll do this in traditional fashion is I am going to let our panelists, we have a really good panel. We've got startup entrepreneurs, we have investors, we have an engineering consultant, we have somebody from a little bit more established company here. So you're going to get a real good mix of viewpoints about what this area is and where the opportunities are. So to start, I'd like to let you guys each introduce yourselves, talk about who you are and why it is you're on this panel. And Deepak, why don't we start with you?
Sure.
You can have that mic. I'll take this one.
Can you? Hello? All right. So my name's Deepak Gupta again. I'm actually an operating guy. I work with Bessemer Venture Partners as as a CFO for a lot of different startups. I'm also a director at Berkeley, and what that means is basically I work with a lot of early stage companies coming out of UC Berkeley, and they're going to different areas, not just construction. So why am I here, basically? I've been in venture capital for off and on for past 7 years. I have looked at a lot of IoT companies as well as drone companies, and I have a couple of them in my portfolio right now. So I'm going to bring you the value of what investors would look at if they're trying to understand those type of companies. And I got the other three guys here actually coming from industry as well, so I'll let them go for it.
Hello, my name is Jason Fry. I work with PlanGrid, and we are productivity software for the construction industry. Previously, before PlanGrid, I ran a construction company myself and implemented and just really saw the need for technology in construction. As Roger said, those were distant worlds, and now it's very exciting to be in the space because we all are impacted by construction. We're in a beautiful building here, and it's very tangible. And to see the revolution with technology in the construction space, it's a very tangible thing to see. It's very exciting, and there's just so much that can be done with it, whether it's the data gleaned from it or just the cool things, kind of like the VR things, all sorts of stuff going on. So that's why I'm here, and I also live relatively close down the hill, so my CEO asked for me to represent here.
Hey everyone, Tomer. I'm head of BD at Matterport for the AEC sector. That stands for Architecture, Engineering, and Construction. My road to construction is a little bit more of a winding road. I'm from Israel originally. I started out my career at Bain. So more from the kind of strategy aspect, and then worked at a few startups in Israel, and then ended up coming to Berkeley, to Haas School of Business for 2 years, where I also met Deepak. Did about a year at a venture capital firm about a mile down the road here, Draper Nexus, investing, which is where I met Roger, because I was investing in the agriculture technology sector, which Roger also has a conference around. And I joined Matterport really to kick off our AEC sector. We'd been, a little bit about Matterport, we are a 3D reality capture company, which means we have a scanner and a software platform which enables you to scan any space and make it a virtual space, which you can walk around, extract 3D data from, and so on. Matterport has been in real estate for the past really 4 years selling cameras, and really AEC is a new sector for us. So I kind of represent a smaller startup within a larger startup. Matterport itself, 180 people, about 65 million in funding, and we're located in Sunnyvale in San Francisco.
Hi there, I'm Dean Lewis, and it's an honor to be here. I come from a construction background. My grandfather's an architect, and my father's a carpenter or a contractor, so I split the difference and became a structural engineer. I worked for the state and the federal government, and then for the last few years I've worked for DCI Engineers as a structural consultant. But what's interesting to you folks probably is that the last few years I've really seen an uptick in prefabrication technology, and we've done a lot of projects in different materials, everything from different types of steel, wood, concrete, precast, and what I want to hopefully talk more about later today is what we believe is going to be kind of the next big thing in the construction market, which is mass timber. So look forward to talking more about that later today.
Okay, thanks very much. So before we get rolling, I'd like to get an idea of who's in the audience here. So by a show of hands, how many of you, I see a lot of new faces, how many of you folks are actually in the construction business? Okay, more than ever before, more than usual. How many technology folks? Okay, about equal. Startup companies?
Nice.
Any investors in our audience today? Okay, I found him. There's the investor, in case you startups are looking for him. What else we got? Did I catch everybody? How many service providers like myself? Okay, a couple of us. Any just general startup event junkies that don't fit in any other category? Okay, that gives us a good idea. So I think the first thing we need to do, if we're going to play a game of tennis, we need a net. So let's put up a couple of nets and define what it is that we're talking about here. I'd like to ask our panel, because I heard a lot of different things as you were talking. I heard drones, I heard software, I heard VR, I heard engineering and architecture. So how would you all define this area, which we all agree is a thing? How would you define this area of construction tech? Could you just give me some parameters? Anyone who wants to start.
You know, before we begin, I have a quick question for the audience, really quick. Why are you guys here? What do you guys want to hear about construction tech? I mean, is it more about just curiosity of what it is, or you guys have a company, you guys are looking for funding? I mean, why are you guys here, by the way? Go for it.
Product market fit.
Okay.
We're building a platform for commercial robots, and we have a client that's specifically asking us about using it in construction.
Oh,
I have a predictive maintenance solution for equipment. I'd like to know more about the best approach to reach the right people.
okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm just here to network. We are offering the first fundamental design change in the fastener industry. So we have solved 5 digital problems, and I'm here to network, learn about other businesses and connect.
Okay, so that's great. Thank you, everyone. For anyone construction tech, I mean, my definition of construction tech is basically how do we make construction more efficient using technology? Whether it's product management, whether it's drone, whatever you want to use. I want to cut costs and make it more efficient. That's the way I look at construction tech, but go for it, guys.
So over the last 4 decades, McKinsey's run reports that productivity in construction has actually decreased, while almost every other industry, apart from agriculture and farming, has increased 150% plus with utilizing technology in their everyday work. So construction has remained kind of flatlined and actually dipped 9% over the last 40 years, which is a little crazy. So there just hasn't been hardware really to address the needs of construction, because typically it's in the field, it's mobile, it's prone to dust and dirt and all kinds of different things, and maybe not super tech savvy field workers. So that is all changing now with the modern hardware and with easy to use apps and things that are super quick to learn. And so, yeah, it's construction, technology meeting the needs of the construction industry and modernizing the whole ship.
Yeah, I completely agree with Jason. I mean, I think that construction technology, the way I see it, is what's tackling the big problems in construction that are causing this huge inefficiency gap. Yep. And those are, cost and budget overruns. Construction is plagued with cost and budget overruns. Lots of uncertainty that causes kind of these huge fluctuations. Lots of rework, lots of human error. I think in that McKinsey report that Jason mentions, they say that 7 to 12% of costs in this industry originate in kind of rework and problems in construction that can be prevented. So that's, if you think of the $2 trillion worldwide construction industry, that is a whole lots of hundreds of billions of dollars that can be prevented. And I think for PlanGrid, Matterport, and a plethora of other startups emerging in the industry, that pile of money of inefficiency is what we're all targeting.
Yeah, I would just add, in my experience, working with my father up through to see where the industry is at now, it's just interesting because a lot of it is the technology now I see is a lot of virtual and automation. But there's also been a lot of, construction industry is hard to innovate in because there's a lot of risk associated with it. So owners, a lot of the time, don't want to take that risk. So, but it's exciting to see that there's not only the digital realm of the innovation, but also the methodology in which we construct things as well.
Yeah. Sorry, maybe I'll just build off that risk just so you guys realize what Dean's talking about. I mean, a general contractor's margins are 1%. maybe 2, right? So a little bit of fluctuation in each way, and that explains to you why technology is hard to implement, right? These guys are very scared that that small fluctuation could put them in the red.
Tomer, let's stay with you for just a second. I want to follow up on something you started to talk about. You talked about increasing efficiency and avoiding rework. What are the real problems that technology is solving? And let's use a little more specific examples, not so much of the technology, but the problems, which are opportunities to our crowd of entrepreneurs here in construction.
Well, I think it's on both ends. If I talked about mistakes in construction, it's preventing mistakes and it's finding mistakes faster, and it's treating those mistakes in more efficient ways. So it's kind of everything all around that. And then if you look at the specific technologies, I mean, BIM, building information modeling, probably the biggest buzzword in the industry in the past decade or even 2. That is a system that is a methodology really of building in a way that prevents it increases coordination between the different. And I think the biggest problem in construction is there's so many moving parts, so many subcontractors, so many stakeholders on a project, all doing different things, that coordination of these issues is what causes most of the mistakes. And realizing with BIM that, hey, the HVAC system is clashing with the mechanical system, is clashing with the electrical system, that's things that you pick up on in design phases today in BIM to prevent those mistakes. And then kind of where I'm coming from on the other side, once construction hammers are actually swinging in the field, you're not going to be able to prevent everything in BIM. It's going with reality capture, whether that be drones, photogrammetry, or terrestrial scanners, LiDAR scanners, like more in the field of Matterport, which are able to pick up on things that usually depended on foremen and superintendents walking around and maybe picking up on, maybe too late, and lower percentages. So, like I said, preventing mistakes, catching them early.
Jason, is that what you guys do too at PlanGrid with software?
Yeah, so you could think of PlanGrid as like a Google Docs for all your construction data, photos and all the blueprints and if we were doing a construction project here, chunks of us would be different companies. There would be the blueprints, the master set. Each page of those blueprints is probably being revised once a week, maybe once a day these days, because things change so rapidly. And you have bulletins, you have other documents that interact with the blueprints and override one detail here or one detail there. And so you have all these, as Tomer mentioned, moving parts, but you also have changing information every day as the light becomes clearer. And some projects are design build, so they're designed as the building is going on, as the car is driving down the freeway, it's being built. So there's all this going on, and you have to keep everybody on the same page. Is what PlanGrid, we really want to be that master set. So we've mastered the blueprints, and they're fast, easy to render on any mobile device. On a construction project, everyone's inherently mobile. You don't want to be lugging around or going back and forth to the office to go to a computer, or lugging around a laptop. If you can look at something on your phone, if you can zoom into a 32-inch by 40-inch blueprint on your phone and see it ultra clear and pin a photo to it and communicate with somebody, maybe an inspector that's not even on the site that day, there's just a lot of value that you're going to have there, and you're going to streamline the whole process and get projects done on time, under budget. A lot of projects, typically the bigger projects, always go over time and over budget, and liquidated damages can be huge. $1 million a day for some tech companies if their doors aren't open and the engineers aren't building when they thought they were going to be building. So to have these efficiencies for a project to be done early, there could be great bonuses involved in that as well, which will help with that. Those low margins that are in construction, razor thin margins. So just to drive the efficiency is why PlanGrid exists, and why there's so much technology being utilized for the space right now.
Well, that all sounds real good, but Dean, as the engineer and the guy on the panel who's been in the construction business, is technology living up to that promise? Is it doing all those things, and is it really making things more efficient, cheaper, and faster?
Absolutely. I think the construction industry as a whole is just, everything is ramped up. Even though it might seem slow, I know, for instance, San Francisco had some 3,000 odd units that came online last year. That might seem like a lot. However, for San Francisco alone, there's about 10,000 new residents moving in every year. So you can see that the supply is not meeting the demand. And so I know from in our industry, the timeline is shortened. You have less materials and less resources at your expense to try and deliver a good product at a good timeline. And so it's from leveraging technologies like these smart gentlemen that enable us to meet those deadlines and try and provide a quality product.
Thanks.
I want to chime in on that just because I came from the construction industry myself, so I have the unique advantage of being on now with a tech company, but being on that side. And I joined because it's funny, PlanGrid helped us streamline so much, and we were doing really well. It was doing extremely well, but yet had this unique chance to be part of this company that I thought was going to revolutionize the industry. And so before I jumped ship from the construction industry to the technology side, I looked at the ROI that was provided from PlanGrid to my own company, and it was, you're not going to believe it when you hear it, was 4,000% ROI. But if you looked at it line by line, I could make sense of it, and it's kind of what I do on a daily basis. And so the ROI gained, the efficiencies gained were just pretty staggering. So it is. I think it is starting to live up to the demand, the promise. For sure.
Those are the kind of numbers that investors like, right, Deepak?
Absolutely. I mean, it's all about ROI. But in terms of just technology out there and what people are doing, I have a company right now in Berkeley that's just working on something simple as when people clock in and clock out. And can they figure out a way to digitize that and just do it on the iPhone? Something simple. They're just trying to provide that efficiency to the foreman to let him know, okay, these many people have actually clocked in at what time and how far they've gotten. Again, there's such a big efficiency play here. It's like, how do you actually make it work on a simple unit model, and then how do you actually try to go after other projects out there, right? So there's a lot going on.
Let's stay with you for a while. As the investor on a panel, especially seed stage,
yes,
you have to place really what are usually risky bets. You have to have great vision. You have to know what's going to take off in the future. So in this space, what are you betting on? What are you investing in? You gave us one. I think you like mobile, I think is what I got from that. What else in this space looks really promising to you?
I mean, I don't want to sound arrogant about this, but obviously it comes down to the team more than anything, right? If you guys have the right team and you have the right type of chemistry in the team, I think that's probably the most important thing, even if it's a bad product. I mean, if it's an incredible team, they can actually push the product the right way. Yes, the market matters, the market size, but you look at, I don't care, make a number of $100 million market or $1 billion market or whatever that number is. And people in their initial pitch deck will, we could get 1% or 0.5%. I don't really care about that percentage. What I want to see is, all right, this early stage team, how are they actually going to make this company the unit model? I just talked about that, but that unit model profitability. They can get something up, they can actually break even, they can say, okay, it cost me this much to actually get this up, and I can actually just in this unit model make it work. From there, we could talk about scalability, we could talk about how much cash has to go in and all that good stuff. But coming to your point, I think the team is probably the most important thing to me.
Okay. So let's shift gears a little bit. I want to go back to some of the drivers of this, and then we're going to talk about specific applications. But I think you guys are sandbagging me, because when we talked earlier, you were all about the labor shortage, and no one's mentioned that yet. So is there a skilled labor shortage? Is that real? And can technology solve that problem? Whoever wants to take that.
Yeah, I think I'll take a stab. From all the data that we've seen, there's a skilled labor shortage now. The market's booming. You drive down 101, you see all the buildings going up, the crane, and 58 cranes in Seattle right now. I mean, you know, just all around the world, there's a boom going on. And, you know, when we look at the States here, there's definitely a skilled labor shortage. You have, you know, younger people not wanting to go into the AEC or the construction industry so much because it's not super glamorous. Maybe they feel like the technology's not there. So, you know, these tools can actually help recruit. They can help, you know, as we get into more union halls and we work with more training centers. You know, I used to teach classes to read blueprints, but not only did I do that with paper, I had an iPad as well. So now they could learn how to read blueprints and how to utilize technology at the same time. So, you know, and allowing people to do more with less. You know, we're not trying to take away jobs. There's too much work and not enough labor. So companies that could say, hey, I can do this project with eight foremen instead of 9, and I can get more work done. That's super helpful. So that's the advantage of the technology in the space.
Yeah, I'll expand a little bit on that because I completely agree with you, Jason. I think that there's a shortage in labor, and that manifests itself in a war on talent, right? So all these construction companies are really fighting to get the best talent to join their teams, and I've heard it from many people. I was talking to someone at Swinnerton, a project executive at Swinnerton, saying that they managed to get the best project engineers because they boast in all their open days, you know, their use of technology. People coming out of, you know, construction management programs and VDC programs, and they're young today, and you know what they look for is they love to see that Swinnerton's using, you know, they've got an Oculus in their head office and they're kind of virtualizing things for their teams in the office and all this kind of stuff, which, you know, right now it's just the sizzle, it's not the steak, right? But it's definitely winning, it's helping them win the war on talent. These guys want to go to the most tech-forward companies. So that's, like Jason said, I think that's where technology plays a big role in the talent war.
Yeah, and I just add from my perspective, talking to a contractor the other day in the AEC industry in the Bay Area, there's about a 1% unemployment because that's basically people just switching from job to job. And but at the same time, to set the stage a little bit, 2008, the recession, we lost a lot of skilled labor at that point, not just labor in general, but skilled labor. We get phone calls and people are asking us on how to frame a stair, a wood stair, I kid you not. So one element that we've seen a lot is prefabrication. You know, build the stair off-site, ship it to site. Therefore, the stair for the contractor just goes from A to B. Therefore, there's no more RFIs. There's less errors in the field. Obviously, we're not doing just stairs, but that's just an example of the built environment and how you can prefabricate it.
I want to add one thing to this. I mean, the skilled labor shortage, I think technology will help in this, right? As we get more efficient with prefabs and all that stuff, more people are actually going in. The young people, I mean, when you're coming out of college or whatever, you do want technology, right? So the attraction is if these companies are using technology in construction and you're getting more and more efficient, I think you eventually might need less people to do the same job. And with prefabs and all the pre-designed stuff, it might even make it easier for manufacturing.
Well, let's follow up on it. I want to talk about specific technologies because I think the audience wants to hear where the opportunities are. So I'm just going to go through a handful of them. In our time, I won't get through everything, but prefab. Explain to me what prefab is, what modular is, how that differs from 3D printing, and what that is in the construction tech industry. Anybody who wants? Dean, you probably know this.
I'll start, but prefabrication is basically anything that's built off-site. It's fabricated in typically a factory, and it can be a kit-apart system, kind of like Legos. You got the floor and the wall panel that all kind of comes together on site, or it can be full-blown modular, like you're shipping boxes, a complete unit. So that's my definition.
Is this a new technology and a developing technology?
So, and that was something I tried to hint at in the beginning. It's something that's been used, it's been around for a long time. It's just now it's become more popular because of the labor shortage and the aspect of technology offers and the automation. So it's not new, but it's more prevalent.
Any other comments on that?
Yeah, I think that, we mentioned BIM. I think BIM is a big driver of prefab, right? The fact that people are designing these things, have full graphic designs of everything that's going to be on site enables them to manufacture things off site. And I think that definitely, 3D printing is an element of this for sure. That's also driving a lot of the prefab industry.
I'll just say the Van Essengiri Hospital campus being built, it's tight space. The project's using PlanGrid to collaborate, so it's pretty much paperless as well. But they did a lot of prefab out at Treasure Island, a lot of the electrical and mechanical subs, drywall subs, even framing subs. Did a whole prefab area on Treasure Island so that they could, because it was just so tight there, Van Essengiri in the city, so that they could build a lot of things, whatever they could, off-site, and bring it to the site and coordinate all that on the blueprints via red lines that everyone can see or photos that everyone could see, so they could collaborate in real time and coordinate all that prefab to be installed.
Okay. Somebody mentioned virtual reality a minute ago. How does that work in this space?
Oh, I'm a little biased because we are a VR company.
Okay.
But I'd say that VR has definitely penetrating more in the AE side than the C side at the moment. So at the architecture and engineering level, being able to visualize, being able to have your client visualize what you're designing, and people are using all sorts of VR applications for that. I could, if you're interested in that space, I could talk about it after the panel. But that's something that's helping. There's a new trend in technology called IPD, Integrated Project Delivery, which is basically, as very brief summary, bringing all the stakeholders in a project very early on in the design for a better ultimate delivery. I think VR helps a lot in that because you're talking with very non-technical stakeholders that need to understand. You could bring them into your advanced Autodesk, BIM systems, but most people won't understand it. To put someone in the space that you're designing and talk about issues and get the tenants and the owner and the facility manager involved in the design process, VR is a big enabler of that. That's just one aspect.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, I think VR and AR. AR, not yet fully penetrated into the actual construction side, but if you look at a few interesting startups in this space, one of them is Daiquiri down in LA, which is basically a hard hat AR device that will ultimately project the BIM, or what's called the as planned, on the as built, right? So that's something that's happening, and that's it's still very advanced technology, very expensive equipment, but obviously prices going down, software is getting better. So I think we could definitely see that. And the Microsoft HoloLens is probably the biggest name in AR in the construction industry today, with a few software enablers like Trimble, a giant software company here in the Bay, and together they're doing a lot of cool stuff in terms of projecting BIM and allowing people to kind of see as planned on the as built. I think that's super exciting stuff that's happening in the AR side of construction.
Okay. Internet of Things, sensors, and cloud technology. Is that something that's developing? Are sensors going into buildings as they're being built? Is this part of the construction process?
So I actually have a startup right now doing exactly the same in this thing. They're talking to builders, and they're saying the new generation that's buying homes wants technology already in their homes. They don't want to wait to get the surround sound and the lights, everything to be controlled by their iPhone, iPad. So they're actually talking to builders in the Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast, and just these builders are so excited. They feel like this is a way they can differentiate with other builders and actually get clients to buy their homes. And the cost of getting all these kind of IoT devices into the homes is very cheap initially, and what they could do in return is probably charge a premium to their end user. The good thing about this startup is what I like is once you have the smallest package, whatever, one speaker, a couple of lights, garage, you can actually go to Home Depot or wherever and install it yourself. You could even just take out the light switch, put a new one. You don't need to call an electrician. Everything's drop and play, whatever. The point is, I see this happening, and I see builders really excited about what's going to happen.
Speaking of sensors, as far as during construction, this is becoming very popular as well for tracking labor and production. Something you mentioned about timesheets. Timesheets were a nightmare. You know, and if anyone's hourly, they could fudge the time, or you know, they might not be willing or super acceptable to innovate, to shave off hours of what they're doing, because they're going to want more hours to get a full week. But if you can give people tasks that are they get something done, what they deliver is what they need to hit. We all work better in that environment. You know, when we have something we have to accomplish, however much time it takes us, we know what we have to do. So labor and productivity tracking are huge. We have sensors all over our HQ right now, tracking, learning to track back to the blueprints, where people are, how long they're taking on things, and because that's gonna, if I have a certain quota to say that I have to get done, I want to be more open to innovating how I'm doing it, thinking, working smarter, you know, not harder all the time, and not just dragging my feet, but really trying to be innovative and lean and do a good job as well, because quality is also, you know, always rewarded. So with the sensors, with the you know, back to the cloud, all that is going to revolutionize.
Yeah, so I mean, on the sensor front, if you're, you know, what these guys were talking about, worker management in the job site, great startup to look into, Rumbix. Definitely recommend checking those out. And then, you know, separated, we were talking about this earlier in the panel, cloud technology. I mean, both PlanGrid, Matterport, fully cloud-based, all on AWS. The ability to get data fast to the teams on mobile devices is a huge enabler in this industry. I mean, this is an industry, as Jason was saying, I mean, the main thing I think PlanGrid is doing is putting things that were on paper in big rolls in some job site trailer in every person's hands at the most updated version. Two big things there, right? From paper and version control that they solve like that, all enabled by cloud. Matterport, what we're doing is scanning what used to take a supercomputer built on site just to get your scan data processed, not to mention stored. You know, huge data sets of 3D data that completely are, you know, processed in the cloud, stored in the cloud today, accessed from any browser, right? That's something that 5 years ago was a dream. So the fact that you could have all this data accessible to anyone, anywhere on a job site, I think is probably the biggest enabler of any construction technology today. So yeah, definitely to your question, cloud.
Is there any value in aggregating that data? I mean, I hear so many other industries, you know, data is a big thing, and you talked a little bit about machine learning, I think a little bit, deep learning and using that data. How about aggregated data? Are we going to learn something about the construction process through all the software you guys are installing in every one of these buildings?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for us, we're building, Matterport has over 500,000 models scanned. Granted, you know, 90% of that is on the real estate side today. But you could take an example of stuff we're doing there. Today, we're able to fully, through machine learning, automate a virtual tour of a house. So as soon as you're done scanning, we can create a GIF or a movie video of someone walking through the house exactly as you would like to tour it, because we have so much historical data on how people manually toured the house. On the construction side, you know, building a huge visual and 3D database. We're really unique in that aspect. We're not only collecting the 3D dimensional data, but also imagery data. So through computer vision, we're able to, you know, in the initial phases, we're already able to detect, you know, exit signs, circuits, give you the total square footage of a ceiling and things like that that help in the, you know, in the takeoff stage where your estimators need to do, you know, to basically budget the project. All the way to safety issues. We're joint development with Fluor right now, one of the largest engineering contractors in the world, on an automatic kind of safety hazard detection, right? Lots of things that you can detect that today a superintendent might walk around the site and try to look for, I don't know, I've sat through a few safety trainings for project engineers. There's just, 1,000 different things that they have to keep an eye out for. We could automate 90% of that. Yeah, definitely a lot of stuff that goes into data plus machine learning, and at least for us.
Any other data applications before I move on?
Yeah, so you want the data to help you be predictive, proactive, instead of just reactive and looking at what happened to go back to your estimating teams. And there's general contractors, for instance, that will assign issues to all their subcontractors in PlanGrid of things that need to get taken care of in different tasks. And what they'll do is they'll run the data on that and see, okay, what subs are giving me a lot of issues? And then within each issue, how long is it taking them to actually open that from when it was assigned to them? And how long is it taking them once they open it to actually close it out or put it in review so that I could close it out and make sure it's closed? So to run that data to see who should I work with on the next project? What contractors are leading edge or embracing new technology or are being more efficient so that we can all, as Tomer mentioned, the IPD model is getting very popular where everyone has a stake in the project, and it's very collaborative. And actually, if we collaborate better, we're incentivized to collaborate better because we're all going to make more on the project if we deliver it ahead of schedule. So that mentality just is new to construction as well, because there's been a lot of tension before on typical construction projects with each company trying to make as much money as they can, and maybe I'm a general contractor. I'm trying to get as much out of my subcontractor as I can. I don't really care whether they captured that in their estimate or not. If I know it needs to be done, I will try and get that from them so the project gets done. And then the sub being super defensive of like, what, is that in my bid? Let me call it, let me find out from my estimator. Let me communicate with my office to see if that was actually priced. With all these moving parts and moving information, you see how it could be a disaster. So the IPD model really fosters that, hey, let's all collaborate because now we're incentivized to do better. Now we have the tools to collaborate better than we ever could before, because my foreman, who's probably not super tech savvy, they're using this simple, easy to use program. They have everything at their fingertips, whereas before it was in carts and in paper and in some folder. And even on a computer, it was in some folder structure that was just hard to navigate. But now it's just a tap away, and it acts and feels like paper, and it's fast. So,
Dean, you were going to say something.
Sorry, the one other thing that wasn't talked about, Dad, is maybe the environmental aspects. We do some work for our private clients where buildings are designed to the Living Green Building Challenge. It's where a building is actually designed to last for 250 years. And so there's a lot of Internet of Things in that building where you're analyzing the water usage, analyzing your electricity usage, how much solar panel, activation is really getting throughout the day. And then actually you aggregate that data over the seasons, and then you'll know, hey, if we have 50 staff that are in today, we're going to have to turn down the lights a little bit because last night or yesterday we didn't really hit how much solar we really needed. And so that's something else to keep in mind with data is if for prolonging the life of a structure and mitigating your energy use, data can be extremely helpful.
That's a good one, Dean, the sustainability side. We haven't even talked about that, some of the environmental stuff, the green stuff. Can you speak to that? I know there are technologies out there to reuse water. There are technology, there's solar, there's energy. These buildings can be very, very efficient, can't they?
Yeah, I would just add, most people, they wouldn't guess that the second used product in the world, the most used product is actually concrete, or the cement that makes the concrete, which is actually pretty powerful if you think that concrete is associated with about 10% of the greenhouse gases that humans produce. And so we try and be conscious of that, and with that is something that the Europeans are very aware of, and they use what's called mass timber over there. So over in America, we're very obsessed with our stick frame construction, 2x4s, 2x6, that are spaced at about 16 inches on center. What they are using and what's being brought over here is mass timber. It's a solid panel of wood. Has anyone, raise your hand if you've heard of CLT? So cross-laminated timber. You're taking those same 2x4s and 2x6s that my dad used, but now you're stacking them together into a solid panel, and it does inherently accomplishes a lot of things. It can be stronger than concrete. It's got a good inherent heat quality, so it can regulate the interior air quality of the building, and it can be prefabricated up to a millimeter of tolerance, so it can be extremely fast. Depending on your building type, 10 to 20% faster. So it lends itself, not only are you increasing the efficiency of the building because it's a more robust product, you think about the light frame fires that have happened in Oakland recently. This is a product that performs better in fire, and we can talk about that more afterwards, but you're changing the environmental impact through the built environment, which I think is pretty cool.
Deepak, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think that Dean talked about the kind of ongoing operations of the building. Just so you realize, kind of a rule of thumb in construction is it takes $1 million to design a building, that it takes $20 million to build, that it will take $200 million to operate over the next 20 years. Right? So building owners are more and more conscientious of that operation and maintenance phase of the building during the construction phase, and LEED and green is part of that. On the Matterport and even the PlanGrid side, I could say that one of the major successes that we've had in talking to some PlanGrid people, I know that that's also true, is actually not going directly to the contractors, but going to the building owners and saying, with Matterport / PlanGrid, you will have a better, what's called a handover, right? It's the phase where the contractor says, here you go, the building's done, here's a huge pile of papers with all the operation manuals and all the facility data that you'll need to operate the building. And that handover has been performed poorly. Up till now, I talk to most building owners. They say no drawings are up to date. That's why laser scanning is popular, because they have to get an as-built drawing with what's actually there. Nothing's been updated over the 15 years of operation of the building. So I think that at least in the operation and maintenance phase is very important to us, because we provide documentation during the construction, which could lead to much better facilities management in the second stage. That's a big driver for us.
Okay. I see at least one robotics company out in the audience. Is there a robotics application here in construction like every other industry? Robots are even replacing lawyers these days. Are they replacing construction workers too?
Not yet. I only joke about it sometimes when, people use they're like, yeah, sure, it saved me 5 hours a week, but I want it to do this, this, and this now. It's like, slow down, robots will soon take over everything, and that time will be saved. But on our play, there's, not really anything.
So I think recently Balfour Beatty, one of the largest contractors in the world, released a study where they said that by 2050, construction sites will be humanless. Right, so that's a pretty big a claim right there for me, at least, especially when I was on the venture capital side. I mean, on the ag side, people always talked about 2050, right? The challenge of feeding the world in 2050. Yeah. I always said for startups that I'm investing in today, they can't wait till 2050 for a certain trend, right? Exactly. So I don't think robotics is as relevant today as people believe it will be. On the Matterport front, I could say that not a week goes by without a customer saying, can you put this on an iRobot? So they want us to put the scanner on an iRobot instead of someone walking around with a camera and carrying it. So maybe sooner than later for us.
Well, I tend to take a different view about this. I mean, you look at even in healthcare, I'm going to switch subject, but there was a company called Intuitive Surgical. If you haven't heard the name, they have something called the Da Vinci arm, which is basically a robot that does surgery. And if you go on their website, this robot is so incredible. It takes a grape and actually peels the skin off the grape, and without damaging the grape. I mean, it's incredible to watch. I think in construction, you will see robots coming in sooner than later, and especially for prefab and the 3D printing and all that stuff's going on. A lot of the repetitive stuff that we have talked about, or you can imagine, all that will be done in robots, and I could see that happening in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, does that mean something? Okay.
Q&A.
So, I know that I just scratched the surface and I didn't ask all the questions I should have. And this is your chance to fix my mistake. This is the Q&A section. Come on up to the mic right here and go ahead, and we've got 30 minutes for questions.
Let's hear it for a panel. So we'd like to take as many questions as possible, so we're using a real efficient approach. So come on up, and then stand in line, and we'll try and cycle through them.
Thank you for the talk. So my name is Rohit, and I'm an architect, a construction architect, and I moved into the technology early on. So I am one person who's stayed in both the sides. So I've done QA engineering, moved to design technology back, and I'm a user of PlanGrid as well as Matterport. So familiar with both the products.
A little closer to the mic. I don't think we can-
So I am familiar with both the products, PlanGrid and Matterport. In fact, I have the app on my phone for both of them. So just to go back to robotics, robots are already there in construction at Autodesk University 2016, which is in November last year.
Okay.
There was a robot which was basically laying your brick automatically. So that's already happening. So it's going to come in sooner than it cuts the brick to size, puts the mortar and places it. So it's happening there. It's coming.
I think that was part of the display with the 3D printing. They were actually using that technology and using the robot to actually.
Right, very true.
Yep.
So, and the other facets of robotics is in terms of, so I worked with Blue Homes, which is a modular fabricator of homes. You may be familiar with them. They're based in Vallejo. So we had an assembly line where the pieces were cut, we had BIM models being made, and then the robotic cutting machine would cut the pieces as needed. So that information was being driven from the BIM model. So it's already happening. The assembly line is happening in some places, especially in the modular.
So what about that? Is there an assembly line process? Do you see that in what you're doing as well?
So that's maybe one thing I didn't comment on the robotics part of it. As far as construction, nothing's off limits and everything's open, especially when you think about prefab and being in a controlled environment where I've seen robots that are drones that can build, a whole house or a slew of elements of that house by themselves. So I would say it's already here. It's who wants to implement it. There's multiple companies in the Bay Area that I know do some sort of robotic automation at some point if they're doing prefab.
Okay,
That's
thanks.
going to address a labor shortage.
Yes, sir.
Hi, thank you. Rick again with Covell Molecular. So what we have been trying to develop are not only green but sustainable transferring substrates that don't last very long into surfaces that last a lot longer. We're also interested in going backwards to existing structures. We're on the Golden Gate Bridge, for example, on a 6-year test right now, where the surface is unchanged. What do you see as a panel, although we're not in electronics or digital type technology, because we're molecular coding, do you see going back to sustainability advances like on Hoover Dam and so forth, where now Bureau of Reclamation wants it to go 300 years instead of its original lifespan of 150, and how would you suggest implementing systems like that? Going back and retrofitting, if you will, by adding a coating that transforms it into a more durable surface.
I think, Tomar, you were mentioning this earlier, but maybe something with 3D scanning and actually going through like the Hoover Dam or actually taking that whole scan of the dam or whatever, the Golden Gate Bridge, and actually taking all the components in and going after and seeing where the weaknesses are, how, where can we make this stronger? So maybe using technology on existing, dams or whatever structures and actually getting that into a, maybe a VR or something to get a better picture of that.
Sorry to interrupt, but maybe I didn't understand the question, and if I didn't, I know there's at least one other person out here who did. Could somebody restate the question for me before we answer it?
That might be on you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the question was how to implement your technology. Is that correct?
Right, to existing structures to make them sustainable because they're degrading at such a rate that they're not going to meet the original life cycle.
And I think with technology, and these guys can probably speak to it as well, is with the Internet of Things, you can, there's devices that we are actually installing in the buildings, in the built product, that will measure, if a concrete starts to corrode or not. They already do that on the federal highway system, so going to those companies or those, jurisdictions which are already measuring that and, offering up your services, I think is one way to go about it.
So that you could be able to detect like chloride ion damage to rebar and so forth?
Yep.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Richard, and I work for Two Sigma Investments. I have two questions. My first question is, I think Tomer or Dean said something about how the profit margin of a certain industry or a certain sector is only 1%. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? I actually don't, I didn't hear the whole thing, so I would love to get more clarification on that point.
So this is specifically for the general contractor sector, right? And the GCs, they're always considered kind of a pipe for money more than an actual profit center, because if you look at Turner Construction, one of the largest ones in the U.S., $10 billion in revenue, that is primarily going to buy building products, right, to pay subcontractors. The actual GC at the end of the day holds on to a very, very slim margin out of that. And when you're talking about different project delivery styles, like we talked about it, GC at risk is probably still one of the most popular delivery methods. That means the GC is at risk, right? He is the one who takes the burden of cost and budget overruns. And when you're talking about a very, very slim margin, and you are the one that's at risk, you're talking about a very, very risk intolerant entity. And technology adoption plus risk intolerance usually doesn't mix very well.
Okay, thank you. I'm actually, to be honest, quite surprised, but I'm sure we can talk offline about the profit margins of the GCs. But my second question is that given the current labor shortage in the construction industry, do you as a panel see possibilities of bringing more people back into the workforce, barring the possibility of having robots that will do all their jobs, which is probably some time away? What are some things that are currently being done, perhaps in a technological or non-technological sense, that is increasing the amount of labor that will help bring down the cost of construction or rehabs and whatnot?
So the question is, what's technology doing to decrease the cost of labor? But let me add to that, say, what are the jobs that are being created as some of these lower level jobs are being eliminated through new efficiencies? Are there new jobs that are being created?
Maybe I'll just mention to your question VDC, and I think it tackles the question from the audience. I mean, virtual design and construction managers is a position that's kind of growing both in terms of quantity of jobs and in terms of how senior they are in their organizations. And I've commonly talked to senior VDC managers at pretty high level, at pretty leading companies that are 27 years old, right, just out of grad school. So these are, the VDC's role is basically to be that conduit between the design phase of a project and the construction phase. So they're the ones operating laser scanners and drones on site. They're the ones in charge of implementing new technologies on site. And that's kind of a secondary job that was given to them because, like one VDC has, that I know has in his LinkedIn, the guy who knows how to work a computer, right? So it's literally the guys out there with a laser scanner is doing, implementing PlanGrid, and then they're, the project executives just basically saying, okay, you are in charge of technology in this project, because they're usually the youngest, they're the most enthusiastic to implement this technology. So I think that is a job that's being created. I'm more and more seeing, I was surprised, I was talking to a commercial contractor with maybe $40, $50 million in revenue. That's very low in this sector. They have a VDC position, right? So that's something that didn't exist only in the kind of large MEP firms and big contractors. That's permeating down all the way to kind of the long tail of the construction industry, right? This industry has 400 companies that have 150 million to 10 billion in revenue, and then another 100,000 companies below that. So it's a huge long tail of construction companies versus these kind of top companies. So more and more, you're seeing these professions permeating down to the long tail.
And
Okay.
I think one thing to just maybe add real quick is that construction is generally just getting more efficient. And one example I'd give of that is 2008 even, almost a decade ago in London, they did a mass timber building where 5 guys constructed a 9-story building in 27 days. So it was almost a floor every 3 days that they're constructing this building. And if that was a concrete building and they had traditional labor and traditional methods, it'd be anywhere from 6 months to a year longer with more labor. So it's just, there's not a removal of jobs, there's just, it's more efficient than.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
I don't think this aspect of AEC has been addressed, but it's a very highly regulated industry. I mean, architecture, engineering, construction, building codes, and so forth. And it's also in, not necessarily in contrast to that, but not repeatable. I mean, in contrast to, say, pharmaceuticals or automotive industries, which are also highly regulated. So if you see an intersection there and an opportunity, what might that be for technology? Does my question make sense, first of all, perhaps?
If it does, then repeat it.
I didn't get it.
Yeah, I think regulation, litigation, two aspects of this industry that are very prevalent, right? I think that especially on the, I think PlanGrid and other technologies which help prevent data loss help you with compliance at the end of the day. For us, documentation, visual documentation is done, A, because it's mandated a lot of time by the law. Also, it helps you in future disputes, right? Most of our customers ask us to keep our data. It's a requirement that our models stay alive in the cloud and accessible for 15 years for any kind of regulatory inquiry or any kind of litigation, any kind of lawsuit that the owner might launch 5 years later when they have a leak or a fire bursts out. So I think that specifically, Roger, you asked about data in the field. I think that before you talk about all these cool stuff like using big data for machine learning, one of the aspects that startups, especially like PlanGrid, helps is prevent data loss, which is a big compliance issue and a big regulatory and litigation issue.
Yeah, good question. I actually, as a lawyer, that's what I keep thinking of. I don't want to mention it, but I keep thinking about compliance. I think about construction claims, evidence issues, all of that stuff. It just seems, so what you guys are doing can go a long ways towards reducing how much you have to pay a guy like Dave in the back when you get into a dispute over a construction defect claim.
Well, just a very brief
Sure.
follow-up. I would imagine it might already be the case, but it would seem very easy to program the codes into the software. Let's say, similar to GPS software that alerts you, okay, you're not in the right airspace or you're subject to these regulations if you find yourself here.
You're using substandard material, stuff like that?
Well, I mean, very simple thing. Okay, the grade for this ADA ramp is too steep.
That's a good one.
Outside of your allowable parameters. Here's a possible solution, or at the very least, fix that. You're going to have a problem when you go to the building department.
Is that being done? Are you aware of a compliance software that's out there?
Well, I think mainly if you look at Revit, which is Autodesk's BIM software, I think there's a lot of add-on there. Just fire code, you could actually check automatically if your building is fire code, right? So there's all these things that, especially in design software, and none of us here are representatives of the big BIM companies, but if they were here, they would tell you that definitely compliance and regulation, right? There's so many different codes. Like I was talking to a mechanical engineering company and showing them one of our models just on a call, and they were saying, I can tell that this pump room is actually out of regulation because the pumps are too close to one another, right? That's something that if you look at a BIM software, as someone's designing this room, there's no reason a computer can't tell them that they are out of code.
I think that's a startup idea right there.
Okay, you heard it here. Opportunity. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Barbara, and I'm with eTrack. We're a seed stage startup, and we keep heavy equipment operational, prevent downtime through IoT predictive maintenance. That's what we do. My question is not related to that at all. I think we have a lot of startups in the room, and I'd be curious from all of you, Who are you seeing ready to adopt technology in your industry? Is there any profile of the types of companies or organizations or people who are saying yes? I'd be very interested in your answer.
Great question. Who are the adopters? Who are they going to market to with their products?
Yeah, so field adoption is the biggest hurdle you're going to have with technology that you're implementing. And PlanGrid, for instance, is a very viral product. I found out about it by an architect pointing this out, saying, "Hey, this is really cool. You should use it." And I got recruited by PlanGrid because I couldn't go a day in the life without doing the same thing because it was great to use. And so the field adoption of everyone is familiar using their phone for everything these days, very familiar with mobile technology. So if it's a mobile, easy to use, fast technology, I think you're going to get adoption from almost anybody. I had superintendents working for me for 30 years. They worked with paper. They saw an iPad. They're like, "Get that thing away from me." I said, "Hey, here's PlanGrid. Let me show you how it works for 20 minutes. Go to your job for a week, and then you tell me." We were going to use it anyway. But after a week, it was good to hear them come back and say, "You know what? This thing's pretty cool." And they were able to adopt it that quickly. So really, there's it just depends what it is. But I think the field. I think there's a revolution going on in construction because it's been neglected by technology in the field for so long, and now the field's like, wow, this is a tool. This is like, I'm not going to screw in all my screws with a screwdriver. I'm going to use a drill. This is a tool that allows me to be more productive and get more done. So I think the field is very eager to adopt the technology because they can use it on their phone or iPad or something they use every day. And all the way up, obviously in the office there's always been technology, so maybe sometimes technology overload there, but they're obviously eager to adopt what's working. And if their field is saying, a lot of times they'll be like, if my superintendent is using it, this guy hates everything. If he's using it, it's going to work. So that's stories we hear often.
So a lot of times what I tell my startups, there's two ways, because this is $1 million question. Everyone goes, how do I get customers? How do I get them to see my technology, acquire customers, keep using it, low churn? So there's a rule of thumb, okay, in startups. Bottom line is, if you can help a customer either save money or make money, they're going to use it, right? And if you can do it dramatically, cut it by 20%, 25%, or whatever, or make them money, they will love your product. That's it. Efficiency, time, whatever you want to use it, yes. But bottom line is, the apps that you use or whatever you use it because you want to, for those two reasons. That's it. So for construction, if you can go and show a foreman, this will help. This is how it'll cut your time and make money for you. Boom, there it is. So.
I guess the only thing that I would say to that is kind of going back to what Jason said, that even if this thing is going to make money, and even if this thing is going to cut time, if it's not easy to use in the construction sector, it's just not going to work. So ease of use is just a huge thing, and that's both to PlanGrid and Matterport's credit, to our engineering teams. They did an amazing job in UX, UI. UI/UX, and they managed to get a product that even field engineers and supers and foremen are using, and to that you have to be easy to use regardless of ROI. ROI is kind of almost secondary to that. And then you ask of what personas. I mentioned the VDCs earlier. They are usually kind of the young, enthusiastic, eager to implement new technologies. A lot of the larger companies have even kind of director of technologies, head of technology implementation, and all these kind of roles in companies that are more susceptible to new technologies. I have to say that that's on the contractor side. Architects, a little more difficult. There are a few things. First of all, they don't have as big of a budget. So that's for architecture shops. And then engineering firms, I have to say that generally have been a lot easier to talk to pretty much throughout the organization. Kind of, first of all, I still haven't figured out kind of the hierarchy or ranking or job titles in engineering firms. I don't know, maybe you could help me out with that later. It changes so much between each firm, but I'll just say that engineers in general that we talk to, if you're showing them something that's going to be helpful for what they're doing. And I think, maybe I'm going to go to the main thing here that I found out that took me a few months is that it doesn't matter if what you're doing helps this guy job. It has to help him on the project he's working on now. And that's the key aspect here, because we talk to people and they say, oh, your product's great, it's amazing. And then 3 months would go by and I'm like, you were there, you said it's amazing, you haven't bought. And he's like, well, I'm working on a year-long project that's, an underground tunnel that has nothing to do with what you guys can do. So the way I see it, I've wasted an hour of my life, right? Because we're a startup. I don't care about revenue a year from now. I care about revenue now. So that's a key learning for me. Focus on things that help people on projects they're working on right now. Very short-sighted industry in that sense, right? Because it's the long life cycle of projects.
Okay.
Great. Thank you guys for the insights this evening. It's been very interesting so far. I'm not in this industry at all, actually. I'm more on the business side of things, coming from an MBA sort of angle. I've grown up in South Africa. I lived there for 21 years. Great country, of course, but 2/3 of the population live in utter poverty. And we've spoken a lot this evening about sort of the very technical side of an industry and how you guys are applying these technologies to take it forward. But I just wanted to ask you guys around the consumer and some of the problems that consumers are facing. Talking about my time in South Africa, people can't afford houses, so they live in shacks and shanty towns. I then moved to the UK. I live in London, have lived there for the last 11 years of my life. Beautiful place, wonderful. London has a huge housing crisis because nobody can afford the properties that are on sale there, and that's not the only city on earth that's facing these issues. So on both spectrums, in the developing and in the developed world, there's a demand and a need, a desperate need. Dean, you mentioned earlier some of the statistics around the discrepancies between demand and supply. Is there anybody in the industry that is innovating and working on delivering solutions that are going to answer and possibly sort of resolve some of the issues that humanity as a whole really are facing in terms of housing?
So is technology solving the housing crisis?
I think prefab is actually a good way to drive costs down. Maybe Dean could speak to that on a cost basis.
Yeah, the one thing about prefab, again, it's a methodology that's been around for a long time, and now technology's kind of upped this game, is these prefab factories, there's a lot of them in the area, and if you've noticed, they've probably switched names over the last few years. That business is very hard to keep going, and the market, the housing market, has its, undulates up and down, so all of a sudden you get a bunch of orders, and you got a bunch of prefab houses that you're producing, and all of a sudden your orders are cut stop. You have to fire that staff, your skilled labor. So that's the challenge that they face. But there's a lot of companies out there, especially now, that are doing it because they see the struggle with the labor shortage, the housing need, and then overall they're delivering a better product because you're in an off-site, controlled environment, producing precision elements that are a better quality.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would just say all of those combined, right? Every technology that we've been talking about here ultimately is supposed to make construction work seamlessly, more on time, less cost, more efficiently, less labor. If you take all of those combined, I think that it's kind of a combined effort to ultimately build more, faster, better, cheaper.
Sir.
Hi there. So I work for a company that does outsourced hardware, software, and wireless development for IoT companies and connected device companies. The reason I'm here is that one of our new customers is developing a smart helmet for construction workers, construction helmet. And there's all sorts of sensors in there for ambient temperature and various biometrics to prevent them from falling down on the job, heat stroke, and various other things, as well as location tracking. And now that you've mentioned the badge in, badge out, that actually seems like a good use too. But my question for you is, what kind of pushback, and it kind of relates a little bit to the question earlier, but any pushback that you're getting from the construction workers? Do they feel like they're being monitored excessively? Do they feel like something is being pulled over them? Or do they recognize that there's an increase in safety or performance or productivity or something like what UPS drivers are seeing in their space? Thanks.
Yeah, I think initially there's a little bit of like I'm being watched a little too much, but I think it also gives, like what I would say to my team was it gives them a good chance to show what they're doing, you know, and to be more driven by what they produce than, you know, every little minute, oh, you know, you didn't clock in right here, or, you know, it didn't read it when you clocked in, so we have to haggle over an hour or something. It's like, oh, you produced this, you said you would do, you know, we could set those benchmarks, and I think, you know, that incentivizes them to be more innovative, you know, work harder. You know, we're not going to, you know, be slave drivers with it, but it gives people the opportunity to shine if they are being productive and, you know, wanting to work smart, you know, so.
Yeah, from our end at least, not so much. I mean, the pushback usually is like, this is a new thing that I haven't done before, so you're adding, you know, a new task to someone who hasn't done it. But once they realize it's easy to use, then they usually just go and do it just like you would tell them that you need to build something else in the building, right? It's not, at least we're not in the position of monitoring, you know, performance. Maybe it's a good thing important to say that Matterport only works in a static environment, right? So you can't do it. It's usually people move out of the way, so you're not really monitoring anyone in it. But yeah, no, not on our end at least.
Okay, thank you. By the way, I'm tweeting the hashtag construction tech. If anybody else is, we've gotten some real gems here, worthy of 140 characters. Okay, Gina?
Hi, I'm Gina. I'm a technical PM, and my question is around, I know we talked about augmented reality and headsets that will essentially, in the future, or possibly now, are aiding, you know, our construction engineers out there, right, from a hands-free perspective, DAQRI, and then the HoloLens. I wanted to get a gauge of the timeline in terms of if we were to implement and you know, procure these types of headsets. Are we, I kind of feel that maybe the market is sort of underdeveloped right now, or is it fully developed, or what sort of timeline are we looking at, and what, you know, what's the percentage of the companies out there that are already using these types of AR and MR technologies that are, you know, assisting essentially in the construction world?
I mean, I could say that from an AR perspective, very, very, very few are actually implementing it out in the field. I think it's experimental, right? I'm talking to kind of these, again, I talked about these director of technology implementation leads. I think if someone mentioned AU, so Mortensen was up there, Taylor and Ricardo were up there, and they were kind of the technology leads for this giant general contractor talking about DAQRI. You know, after the keynote, I said, "Are you guys actually using it on stage?" They're like, "No, it's a year or 2 or 3 away, right?" And this is a very tech-forward general contractor. You know, you ask people at DAQRI, I think they'll tell you it's less, but there are some still like fundamental issues with the technology. Speed of alignment, it's tethered. It's, I mean, there's just some barriers that prevent it. Also, I mean, it's a $5,000 hard hat. Right, like that's something that you're like to implement on a mass scale is very difficult.
Yeah, the people ask us often what our biggest competitor is, and by far it's paper. You know, even companies that, you know, there's a few projects like I mentioned going paperless, but some that also claim it. You'll go on site and there'll be, you know, papers here and there. You're like, what are these? Oh, you know, I had to. A lot of inspection agencies or OSHPD, they have to like wet stamp things now still, so they have to be printed out. So different agencies are behind the ball on that as well. So it's coming, and we like to think of it, and you know, especially the AR, VR, that's really cool stuff again, because you're dealing with a tangible, industry that's building things that you're going to touch and feel. So it works. It's going to work really well. So a lot of it's not there. You know, things like, you know, the real-time collaboration via 2D and even some of the BIM is now. You know, the robotics and AR and VR, those are going to be there. And like, you know, some robotics now, but primitive, and but we need to be thinking at that level for sure.
So it looks like it's still in pilot right now, and we're looking at possibly another, would you say 2 to 3 years for this to be completely out there? We don't know yet.
Well, with what we do, we do like, we digitize everything pretty much and allow people to collaborate real time. So with PlanGrid, it's like now, it's being used now, and you could get, value now. You could download it. If you had a construction project, you could download it right now and be using it tomorrow, and there's not a lot of ramp to value. So, but there's different things, that I think are a little further out.
Yeah, I think a few things could disrupt it, right? Apple coming out with a consumer-grade AR, things that are a lot cheaper and can be out there in the field. I know that Google Tango is already being used on several projects that I've seen. Great webinar just went up yesterday. Assemble Systems, a big kind of BIM collaborator software, working with Wallbridge, a big industrial contractor out in Detroit. They're doing really cool stuff with Google Tango and moving it to AR, possibly giving their field engineers kind of AR capabilities based on Tango. Still all experimental. 2-3 years sounds right. Don't tweet it.
Yeah, exactly. I think we don't know, to be honest with you. It's something that technology will adapt as fast as, where the users need it. So we'll see.
It's the longest I don't know you've ever heard, right? Okay, last question right here.
Hi, thanks everyone for all the information. So a little bit about myself. I'm doing a startup and we just recently started. So I have a background of data science, deep learning. So this is a question, I guess, which a lot of people have coming from the tech side, like Google, Facebook. What are some of the, kind of like in construction tech, right? I mean, some of the areas are collaboration tools, analytics, risk management, better design. So from a tech guy's perspective, right? I mean, where do you see some of the big pain points which can be solved using, in which of these areas, the biggest impact, biggest improvement in ROI, reduction in cost, et cetera, for somebody who is starting right now, right? I mean, what would be your advice to such a person in terms of focus on collaboration, because it's, people are still digitizing it, so maybe you should focus there, or is it, okay, it's mature enough that now you can try doing some analytics on top of it, or is it, risk management, things like that. So that's my first question. And second is specifically computer vision. What are some of the low-hanging fruits in computer vision, worker safety, things like that?
I think he's looking for the opportunities here. What do you recommend?
Opportunities in general, or specifically with your background, or?
Yeah, and I mean, my background is deep learning, analytics, machine learning, where there's a lot of data and you can do something and that's 10x, 100x better than something you cannot do, you can do without data.
Are you a first-time entrepreneur, by the way? You're a first-time entrepreneur? You're doing this
Second,
first?
actually. Second,
now?
yes.
Okay.
So we have we have a pretty big data science team at PlanGrid, and the machine learning, to read everything on the documents and make it all searchable is very important. So if I want to search for piping and I search that in our app, I'm going to find every blueprint, every cut sheet, every issue, everything that has that word across my whole project. Make it the Google for the project, so making everything searchable, because a lot of it's still going to come to you as paper or a PDF or something like that for a while as the world transitions from document-centric to data-centric. So, and something that Tomer mentioned with AI being able to look at a photo and see if there's potential issues. If it sees a crack, it can alert you to, hey, this might be an issue, and take care of a lot of the typing or manual things that you would have to do to be like, oh, there's a crack, let me assign it to this person, let me say what's happening. The photo can do it. So we're developing a lot of one-click workflows like that will actually look through the photo, they'll link it to the plans, and all kinds of things like that. So there's a ton, there's the matrix that you could dive into with all that.
No, I second that. I mean, from an image recognition, that's probably big. And one thing we didn't really get into is drone technology and how we're using in so many different...
What technology?
Drone.
Oh, drones,
Drone
yeah.
technology, yeah, and how we actually go after. I mean, there's just so many different things we can do with that, and with image recognition, and how that's going on into areas which need to be mapped out, right? So.
Yeah.
They fly drones and do 3D models.
Yeah, exactly.
Do volumetric estimates.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much for the question. Thank you, panel. I'm going to turn it back to Rob. It's not too late to tweet to #ConstructionTech if you liked our panel. Talk about it. Thanks.
First of all, let's give it up for Roger Royce. So we've now arrived at the point in the event that you've all been waiting for, the raffle. No offense, panel. First prize we have is Dead on Arrival by Roger Royce. How to avoid the legal mistakes that could kill your startup. And you can get it autographed and get a picture with the author. Come on up, ladies. And the winner is?
Oh, am I picking right now?
Yes.
May the odds be ever in your favor.
The odds look good. Manila Bargain. WeatherTech Fasteners. Come on down. All right. The next prize we have is a classic Idea to IPO coffee mug. Classic. And the winner is Parag Pradham, Harbinger Group. Come on down. Come on down. Let's give it up for our prize winner. Along those lines, we have the classic Idea to IPO polo shirt. Ideal for the summertime. And the winner is Direct Surety, David Drumey. David, going once, going twice. David, come on down. Let's give it up for David. That's extra small, but talk to me later. We'll get you another size. Oh, perfect. Have her wear it. A free week at Boot Up. That's where Idea to IPO is based, over in Menlo Park. It's a great place to hang out, get work done. The winner is Entraventure LLC, Barbara Tim Brock, managing partner. Come on down. Let's give it up. Barbara. Rick from Covular Molecular Coding has a prize. Rick, come on up. Tell everybody what your prize is.
So everybody's been talking about all the technology, and y'all have to look through a screen on your smartphone or iPad to see it. So whoever selected it, I'm going to put a nano quartz coating on your device that you have here, and that'll take the friction out of your glass. It'll give you better clarity, like high def, and it'll make the glass about 10 times harder. And the winner is? Me. No, just kidding. Amit Argawal.
Come on down.
Oh. All right. Congratulations. If you meet me in the booth in the back, I'll do it for you.
All right. Now we have a free pass to Idea to IPO proprietary events for August 2017. We have tons of events lined up for August. The winner is Mark Brinkerhoff, PE. Come on down, Mark. Now we've got our grand prize that you've all been waiting for with bated breath. It's a watermelon from Yosemite Fresh. And the winner is let's do another one. Telepresence Robotics. Harrison Rose, come on down. So don't eat it all in one sitting.
Take a picture with you.
All right, so our panel will stick around for one-on-one conversations. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time.